It's a very big throwing dart you've got.
Well, yes, you could say that. It's called a Plumbata. It's a late Roman throwing dart. Now we know that Vegetius talked about the Roman infantry carrying 5 of these in the hollow or behind their shield.
Right.
And what we think is that as the shield lines were forming and the enemies coming into contact,
Yep.
the middle and rear rankers would step back on their leg, pluck out one of the Plumbata, throw back the arm and lob it up as high as possible. And we think what the idea was, these were short-range throwing weapons. So as the Germans or the Picts or the Attacotti were coming into contact,
Yep.
these things would rain down ahead. So you've got this dilemma of, like, you're about to advance on the Romans, you've got your shield out in front, you're about to clash with the Roman front line. These things come raining down on you. Do you keep your shield down because you've got the Roman spears and the front line facing you, or do you flip the shield up to catch these things, in which case your whole belly's vulnerable to the Roman attack. So short range, very vicious. You can see it's almost like a mini pilum with that long armor piercing or muscle and flesh piercing shank there with a barbed head. Yep. It's not a killing weapon, but if it gets in you, it's going to hurt like hell, and your instinct is to try and pull it out, and it's going to rip muscle and flesh aside, and again that's going to incapacitate you, and the Romans can move in to finish you off. So the great thing about the Plumbata is that it often breaks on impact. It's a cheap weapon to maintain because as long as you can recover this, you can burn it back into a fresh piece of wood, cut out a few bits of leather. Yep. We know we found one, or one was found with a bit of leather around it. We don't know the length of the shaft, so we think they may have used leather fletchings, but the illustrations show feathers, so there's some kind of variation on that. Burn it in, dig a little hole in the ground, plop it in, put a bit of lead into it, and there's your new Plumbata ready to go again. So you can fire off 5 very quickly. They'll break. As long as you can salvage that on the battlefield, you can get your 5 back and you're on the march again. Very effective weapon.
And if the enemy's got horses, you're not going to kill any horses, but they're not going to want to stick around for very long.
They won't. If you could imagine a horse, and these are raining down on the flanks or the neck, particularly unbarded horse, it's going to shy quite dramatically. And in that moment of shying, the rider's going to pitch, and that's when the infantry have the opportunity to open up the shields and get the spears in, pitch the rider off the saddle. So a very effective weapon. Like I say, not lethal. Unless you get it in the eyeball, which is a painful way to go. Try to pluck that out. Call it the Harold death, for example. But very effective at discombobulating, as you might say, the enemy ranks.
Discombobulating, that is the actual Latin.
Well, we know there were discombobulators, a particular troop type.
Yeah.
Very low pay, unfortunately.
Discombobulate, I think is the plural.
Well, that's like drinking a coffee made of... No, I'm not going to go there, no. So yes, the Plumbata, the late Roman throwing dart.
Right, but don't you think that there's a danger if they're thrown underarm, that the less coordinated or reliable and scared troops, they're going to be throwing them just upwards and backwards and all over the shop?
Yes. My answer to that would be Vegetius talks about 2 Roman legions in the Balkans specialising in this weapon. And I think they were called the Joviani and the Herculiani. If they were specialists, then they knew how to wield this weapon very effectively, which means they were trained very well. Based on the fame of those 2 legions, most of the legions in the West, we think, took these weapons off, because we have a lot of archaeological finds of them through the Western Empire, not so much in the East particularly. But if you were trained in these and you could master the technique of releasing at the right moment, you would be equipped with them. If not, you'd be relegated to slingers or archery. We know a third to a quarter of Roman legionaries were trained in the bow. The sling, a very effective weapon, very vicious weapon. So there's a good chance that if you showed that you did actually do, as you're suggesting, that kind of step back, pull, throw, and it goes that way, it's like, oi, you, get out of the ranks, pick up that slingshot and take that bloody arm off, you don't deserve it.
Backwards isn't going to harm anyone.
Except maybe your neck as it wraps around your things.
You could presumably throw these like a modern playing dart?
Well, you could. There's the possibility, and we field tested these, you can get a bit of range on that.
Yeah.
And the other way, which is more effective range-wise, if you get the spin right, you can impact a target. The only, I think, issue with this is you have to have a clear field of view to do it. So your middle ranks and your rear ranks won't be able to do it because they've got the shield wall legionaries in front. So you'd risk hitting the back of their helmets. So again, this is the throwing up method. But if you were moving in a more skirmishing mode, you were open ordered perhaps, you could advance forward, take one out, throw it, advance forward, take one out, throw it, and keep up a little mini volley to break up the enemy as they're coming towards you. Once you've used all 5, then you can close up into close order.